your 3 compounds that you would use for a contest prep. If you could only pick 3 compounds. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear with Skip Hill, Andrew Berry. I'm Scott McNally, and all of our programming is brought to you by TrueNutrition.com. You can use our code THINK for some additional savings. This is going to be fun. I have a topic today. First of all, guys, here's what we're going to do. We've got 2 kind of mini topics. They're going to be interesting, entertaining, fun topics. And then after that, we have a bunch of your listener questions. Skip's been coaching for the past 2 decades. Andrew, you're at what, 14 years?
14, 15 years. I guess
14,
like
15. I'm coaching for 13 years. So between the 3 of us, we've literally seen thousands of people transform their physiques. And we're here today to share our education with you, help you guys be better at this sport that we love. But to start, I've got a fun one. You got to pick your 3 compounds that you would use for a contest prep. If you could only pick 3 compounds.
Go to Andrew first.
Oh, okay. So obviously, is this just for me or with clients?
This is well.
Give away what I do. I don't care.
Andrew? What did you take to turn pro? No. What do you think in general? You know, let's say, what if I guess, yeah. What would you? I mean,
I'm going to exclude one thing that I think a lot of people have in testosterone.
You're kidding. You're not going to use test in a contest prep.
Well, I like to use it up to a point, but I actually end up looking better and better when I pull it out. So I'm definitely going to keep Tren in there. Like,
really?
There's no other compound I think that works better for me in terms of getting hard. Shit, man. So I'm going to go just 3. Come on.
I know, that's what makes it tough, right?
Oh shit. Okay. So Tren, got to add a DHT. So I'm going to say, it's a toss-up between Masteron and Winstrol. I'm probably going to say Winstrol.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would have said Mast.
See, that's like I'm literally like this. Okay.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It depends on what I have access to. If I have Winstrol, I'm happy. If I have Masteron, I'm happy. So Tren, one of the DHTs, and then I'm going to go with GH. I'm someone that responds really good. Yeah, and people like. I use it the night before the show. I will take a bottle of Zero.
Nate's calling you out.
Oh, man. Here's the thing. Here's what I'd look. Here's how I'd look at it. Okay, I'm building a sundae, right? And I got my Tren ice cream. I've got my Masteron ice cream. I've got my Winstrol ice cream, and then the Halo and Proviron are little sprinkles in the whipped cream that I put on top.
But
I think I can look sufficiently good.
You ever see Superman? You ever see Superman ice cream?
Yes.
I feel like it would look like that, you know?
Yeah, you're right.
But tastes like
the
Tren.
Sprinkles are a little more toxic. I just
Yeah. They're not. Yeah, exactly. So, oh man, Nate threw that in there, so he might be right. I might actually have to swap the GH for Halo.
Damn.
Let's jump to 5.
Yeah, can we go to 7 compounds?
Right.
Because we're not even talking about controlling estrogen. But then again, I don't need to do a lot of that because I don't have testosterone in the mix. So no, Nate's right. I do really like Proviron and Halo testing over the last couple of weeks. I really think that adds the finishing touch. So it's a coin flip between GH and Halo testing, honestly.
Okay.
So Tren, we'll say Tren, Masteron, and either Halo or GH. So I snuck 4 in there.
Either Halo or GH, whichever.
Whatever you got the money for. If you got extra money, go with the GH. If you're poor, just go with Halo.
Right.
Skip, how about you, man?
Well, can we assume then that like an AI would not be? We're not counting. You
gotta count it. You gotta
really?
Count it. Yeah, an AI. It's a drug.
We gotta go to like 6 compounds then.
Yeah. I know. God damn. Oh, this is a little bit tougher because I thought we were just talking about.
We're really going to pare it down.
AAS. Okay.
We're really going to pare it down. If you could only run 7 drugs on a contest prep.
I know.
Well, let me say something real quick. One time I was training a woman, right, in my gym, and she's very open-minded, and she's just a regular Gen Pop client. And she was like, I think she was like, "Oh, you did well at your show last week, right?" And I was doing another one like the following weekend. And I'm like, "Yeah, I won my show. And now I'm doing a bigger one, blah, blah, blah." And she's like, "Oh, so like you take steroids, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, And And she's like, so you just take like what, like one shot, like on a Saturday or like once a week? And I'm like, oh no, honey, like I'm on like 9 different drugs today alone. And I add in 2 more tomorrow. Like, you know what I mean? It was like, she's like, oh, like her mouth just kept on dropping as I was naming names. She's like, that sounds real scientific. And I'm like, it is. It's bro science.
It's better than science.
It's completely random. It's just whatever I have here. I want to take this today.
Kitchen sink approach.
Right. Okay. So given your, I don't want to say new parameters, because I guess I just didn't understand. I thought we were not counting
3
things
compounds.
like, say clan and shit like that. So I will say this. I would probably go, and this will be, it won't be much different, but because I can't use anything to counter estrogen, so I would actually probably go then with EQ. Tren is just absolutely like, we can talk about how it's not great for you and all that sort of shit, but seriously, who runs a serious prep with no fucking Tren? Go home. Come on. I mean, you're just, you're not going to do it.
You're natty. You're basically natty.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not doing Tren, you're just natural. So I would probably go EQ, Tren, and I love Anavar. Anavar is the gold standard, but I probably, if forced, I would go with Winstrol as well. And I know that's very close to what you were saying, but that's being forced to take 3. And the reality is this isn't going to ever come to fruition.
Right.
None of us are going to compete with those type of parameters.
I'm not bringing what was your gunfight?
What was your list again, Skip? Then what were the 3 altogether?
I would go EQ, Tren, and and for what it's worth, I mean,
EQ, Tren, and what?
And you guys, I would probably stick with Winstrol.
EQ,
I
Tren,
would want to do. Let's put it
Okay.
this way: I wouldn't be disappointed if I couldn't get Winstrol and I had to do Anavar, only because for me specific, that stuff, it makes my muscles contract so hard that it feels like they're going to rip from the bone. It's insane, the contractile force that it's just like no other compound to me. I love that shit.
Yeah.
But like I said, being forced to the 3, that's probably what I would go with, I think.
I came up with, I thought I had my list situated, but I think I'm going to change it now. Let me ask you guys this. So first of all, I'm going to have test in there. Like I got to have test in there, period. I just feel like I need that. That would be the foundation. And I almost feel like if I had to, I could do a prep with just test and estrogen control. But let me ask you guys this. Do you think that you can effectively control estrogen with Masteron?
I don't.
How high is your testosterone?
Yeah, that would be the thing I'm thinking would be.
I mean, if you're running a 200 mg a week testosterone, basically a TRT type dose,
yeah,
absolutely.
I agree.
I wonder about this. What about this? What if I started with a little bit higher test, not so crazy that I'm getting, negative side effects from it, lower mast, and then as I closed in, I ramped the mast up really high. Yep, and lowered the test down. I just thought of that while you guys were talking, so that would be maybe a thought.
Strategy.
Because initially I was going to say test, and then Arimidex, and then a fat burner. I was going to go with either Clen or T3, because my thought was if I can get absolutely freaking peeled. My issue's never been to not like to be harder. You know what I mean? So I think that would be, I think my goal would be to retain muscle, keep as much as I can, keep the strength. You know what I mean? Keep the strength through the prep. Maybe I'm feeling this out as I talk,
Well, no, because I don't think there's a wrong answer here. We're kind of, it's something we can all try. I'm not going to do it.
No, God, no.
I'm not going to limit to 3 compounds, but no, I like where you're going there, but because each one of us have individual strengths and weaknesses, I guess, like for me, I need certain things to get grainy, right? Versus, but the other thing is like, and this is odd because I know people be like bullshit, but like for me, once I pull the test, I feel like I get fuller and rounder too. And yes, and I know that goes contrary to common sense as well, but the minute I pull that shit out, like shoulders are just instantly rounder 2 days later. And, like I'm obviously the graininess is coming out, but shoulders are rounder, arms look bigger, legs have a little bit more fullness to them. It's really weird. I know, but that's been something we learned, I think, back in 2016 or so. And it's kind of something I've stuck with.
Huh.
But that cuts to how individual each person is.
That's what I was going to say.
I don't think it's weird as much as the fact that you came to that, because some people will be so locked into a certain way of doing things. And honestly, a lot of them are us older guys. We get locked into this and we don't want to give into change because this is the way it's supposed to be. And then you will not notice and ever know if you respond differently. I don't know.
Well, let me give you also another scenario. You guys probably get this where clients will ask it like 20 weeks out, like, okay, what's the protocol for the whole prep for drugs, right? And you're like, well, look, I'm going to just give you a template with very like generic numbers on them. Yeah. But really it's just so you know roughly when to have those compounds if we are going to even use them. So just so you're ahead of the game in terms of having, but like, don't read this as I'm telling you to take this
screen cap it
or not.
And send it to everybody on the internet.
Well, no, like I don't care the doses because the doses are very innocuous. They're not nothing crazy, right?
Yeah.
But it's more so like, don't just start taking this. Like, I'm going to tell you what I would do in your situation each week. Yeah. But this is just so you know, okay, have Tren or Masteron or whatever like available. If, because there's a certain time period where I'm thinking about adding things in based off how the client is looking. And obviously I think all three of us are in the camp of let's take the least amount possible. Let's not just throw something on paper and say, oh, I have all my guys do 1,000 mgs of Tren or whatever. I've seen some of these write-ups where 20 weeks out, they're doing 1,000 mgs of Tren, 1,000 mgs of EQ, 1,000 mgs of test, like a bunch of orals. And then the big switch from at the 10-week out point is switch from Tren E to Tren A at 1,000 mgs a week.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, 20 fucking weeks of Tren? Like, Jesus, guy.
Well, it's funny too, because I was just going to mention that earlier about the difference between E and A and see what you guys thought about it. I'm to the point, this is just me individually. I do not like Tren and Anthate or
I don't either.
Or the other, help me, Hex. I don't like
hexacarbonate.
Yeah, and there's something, I don't know what it is I don't like, but I don't like it. Over time, it's like it just becomes, I feel like shit on it. And I have never felt that way with acetate. And that's why I tried it quite a while actually, in like 16 or 17. And I never went back to it, and I'm not going back to it. To me, it's night and day. I can honestly say I just hate the fucking compound. Both of them. I don't like them.
Well, this
I guess what I'm saying is when it comes to Tren, I should have been more specific and said, like, because we were both saying Tren, I just wanted to say, to be specific, Tren A. Because to me, Tren A and the other Trens they're a completely different league.
Yeah. I think that speaks to like the enzymes that you have that we all individually have that break down different concentrations in muscle tissue that break down the esters and how the drug is released. But this brings me back to the thing that me and Scott, I think, were talking about maybe like a month or two ago, just privately, about taking your injections and splitting them up to daily versus every other day or every third day. Remember we were talking about that? And in terms of side effects, like
it sounds like something we would talk about.
Yeah, no, I think we were texting, or maybe we had a voice. I can't remember, but and I said over the last couple of years, I've been switching instead of like an every other day thing. Even with your fast acting compounds, I've been doing them into like more micro dosing into every day. Yeah. And the last couple of preps, I have not had like the insomnia, the crazy night sweats, all those things that we typically get as side effects from Trenbolone or some of the other compounds. For instance, I find that splitting the dose up, even if you're still taking tests and you're only taking 300 mgs a week, breaking that up into like 50 milligram doses a day versus every other day of 100, I find just that even keel versus that, I find that helps out and it's more beneficial in terms of the side effects. And the look is still the same.
I agree totally.
You did then too, so I'm glad.
Yeah. All right, listen. So let's just move on to our questions. I had this other little mini topic, but we don't have enough time for it because we have a ton of questions. If you guys want to take part in the next show, comment below and we'll tackle your questions on the next episode. But until then, we have a ton. I'm going to start with this one from Travis. He says, the use of intensity amplifiers during a prep, say the final 10 weeks? Yes, no, maybe, and why?
I'll go. Or do you want to go, Skip? Oh,
Looks like you might have to because I can't bring my. Yeah, I think I'm good now. This will be a good one, I think, because we may have differing opinions on this. I'm not big on going overboard on intensity as your recovery and your calories are coming down and kind of getting in the way of recovery. I'm okay with them if they're going to replace, like if you're going to go lighter weights and not go like to failure and go ridiculously, like say rest pause or something. So I kind of look at intensity, like if you're going to do, say, a superset or something along that line versus rest pause or, focus on negatives and things like that. I mean, you got to really kind of dig into the actual intensity technique itself to be more specific as to, what you're using. But I don't like to go overboard on them because I just think that you have the potential to fry your CNS.
Yeah.
And especially if you're late in a prep, when you're low on calories and your caloric output is so high with cardio that, you could be asking for trouble. And it's something I have actually fought with in my brain myself because I admit this. I have seen guys back off in prep, and I can't do it. I'm just being honest. But I've seen guys back off, and they almost always look better when they're backed off. When they start to back off at like that 6-week out mark. It's not that they're not training hard, but they're not training balls out, to failure, things like that. And they end up looking a whole lot better. And I would bet that they run a lesser risk of injury and things. But try pulling back when it gets closer to a show. It's like the hardest fucking thing to do ever. Am I completely off base with what you guys think?
I look at it this way, like, don't start adding a completely different training style in when you start your prep. Right. Like the training that you're doing in the off season should be roughly the training that you're doing to get you to stage. Now we're talking about intensity techniques, whether it be drop sets, partials, rest pause, static holds, compound, cluster sets. What else? So my point is if you're just a straight set kind of person, I wouldn't be adding that in because it's prep time.
Yeah, you're not going to use it to get leaner, right? You're not thinking like, oh, I'm going to shape the muscle by
not shape the muscle. Yeah. But I do think, and I think someone like Nate Spears is a great example. His brutal hard training that he does off season right through to the show day almost is what allows him to get away with eating more calories and doing a little less cardio than someone else. Not because he's just so genetically blessed. It's just that he takes every training session as seriously as he does in the off season as he does, 3 weeks out from the show. So right. I do think if you're someone that taps into intensity techniques and you're going balls to the wall year round, I don't think you should necessarily pull it out. But now I also do think from a coaching standpoint, we probably all have one of our questions is like, how's your training going? How was your training this week? Someone can reply back like, oh man, the muscle's feeling kind of dead. I lost some strength in a few exercises, whatever. To Skip's point, that's a great point or a time where a coach can step in and say, okay, this week, let's pull it down a little bit. Let's either drop some volume, let's drop an intensity technique that you're doing, and let's work on the recovery a little bit more. And then, chances are 9 out of 10 times, if the prep's going smoothly, next week they're like, oh, I feel great again. Yeah. Okay, right. So add a little bit of the stuff back in, I do think there's a point about 10 days out from the show where you do need to tamper it down a little bit. And what I tell people to do, I don't want you to completely change your mindset, but what I do want you to do is basically just go to failure, but don't do anything that's going to take you beyond there. And let's maybe pull either one exercise out of your routine or pull one set from several different exercises. So the volume is a little bit lower. Like legs is the hardest muscle group, right? Usually I'll tell people I want you to stop training your legs either 10 to 7 days based off their feedback as well. If they know I look really good when I train my legs 7 days out and the separation's all there 7 days later, great, we'll go with that. Me, myself, the last couple of years, I've stopped training my legs 10 days out. And maybe on the Saturday before show, I'll do 3 sets of hams, 3 sets of leg extensions, and maybe a few walking lunges, and that's about it. And I felt like my legs have really come back because I've taken that approach of giving them the time off that they need to really come out as full as they can be. So that's just my take.
I like that. Yeah, I think that, I think I've talked about it on other programs too, but I think that there is something to be said about not over stressing yourself. I think you're onto something, Skip. I think you're onto something that if you are kind of just beating the hell out of yourself, you're not gonna look your best. And that's been something I've kind of been experimenting more with people, even just this year. People that I know train really hard, people that I know are gonna push it really hard. It's like 2 weeks out from a show, you're not going to, a middleweight isn't going to lose any muscle. He's not going to grow any muscle either. So he doesn't need to have like the hardest leg workout that he's ever had in his life. There's no sense in that. I'm thinking of where would I add a intensifier in, and I'm thinking just for myself, and this is just something intuitive. And I picture myself in the gym feeling weaker. Like I can't, like maybe I grabbed the, whatever I was using, we'll say the 100-pound dumbbells, and I'm doing a dumbbell press with them, and I get like 4 or 5 reps, and I feel like I just can't get what I want. Then maybe drop those and grab the 80s and finish that set. You know what I mean? Like to keep that energy going, keep the pump happening, keep the exercise, keep things intense. Maybe I can't do it with the weight I was using before, but I might be able to kind of pop it up with a drop set, something like that.
But not to leave the gym and go, oh my God, that's what I need to do. But to take that as a sign, go, I'm beat to shit. Because this comes to, and I know we got to move on, but I want to ask you guys this, because I will deload clients sometimes and have them on, cruise, deload, sometimes at 7, 8, 9 weeks out, because that's a good time to pull back, make sure that everything is good before stepping on the gas again for like kind of like that last leg. How could that cat possibly be out when I just put that fucking cat in the room? You guys, I apologize for the distraction. I've had to get up twice because I'm trying to get this.
We hardly hear it.
To be quiet. Okay, fair enough.
I hardly hear it. You're good, Skip.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. So now I'm the distraction talking about my cat.
That's usually what you do. You're like, if you notice, I muted my microphone so that I could cough.
I know. I usually, I come back.
Did
and
you guys see my?
when I could have just
did
gone.
you guys see my story last week? I was doing this thing about like, what was it? Like things. What is it? I said cat people. People that have cats, for some reason, always like to share in their updates how their freaking cats are doing. You guys
I'm gonna have to unblock you. I missed that. No, I'm kidding. I actually,
but I got so many people.
I usually see your stuff.
I got so many people on their next updates, right? And be like, so my cat has been jumping on the bed at night, and they're like, oh, I'm just fucking with you. I don't have a cat.
All right, let me see here. How about Betsy, come over here. Come and hang out with me. I'll get you situated. Just hang on. Thoughts on heavy sled pushes and drags for leg hypertrophy. I gotta situate this dog.
For hypertrophy, I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't do it. I don't know that it would be necessarily bad, but I'm thinking for some intense hit cardio, maybe, but not for flat out size. Do you think? I don't want to go against if you're thinking of something I'm not. Well, push it up a fucking slant like it's like a grade in Colorado where we had to. It's like a 9% grade. I guess if you push it up something like that, maybe. But there's so much other shit going on from shoulders to chest and the pushing and the calves. I'm like, I don't know.
It comes down to the the type of muscle cell that it's hitting, right? So maybe you're going to get some type 1 muscle fiber activation with that type of work, but it's not something I'm writing into programs, it's not something I'm doing myself. I used to do that for football training. You know what I mean? Yeah. Hypertrophy is not the name of the game when it comes to football training. So, but
let me ask you this. What if it was calves? Go ahead, finish. I totally butted in.
Well, I was going to say, if he's seeing results from doing it, then by all means, like, please keep doing it. Just because we think something is right or wrong, if you're seeing results from it, even if every scientific paper out there says this isn't going to work for you, but if you're doing it and you're seeing results, then screw it, keep doing it.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Back to your point.
Well, what I was thinking was, because I'm mulling this over my head, I'm thinking, what if he means calves? Because if you were pushing from your toes and you were driving, that could be something that the calves would not be used to. And that could be, there's a lot of your entire body being used, but it would fry the shit out of your calves to move heavy weight and from the toes.
Did Dante ever give you? Did Dante ever give you the calf tool where you don't even turn the treadmill on? And you put it on an incline and you walk just on your toes for like 10 minutes. Do you ever have you do that?
Oh, no kidding. I've never heard that before. Who's Dante?
That was something that Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just thought that was fucking hilarious.
You know
I
what?
don't know.
Nate just brought up a point. Have you ever seen John Meadows has some videos up on his website of at the end, like you superset like a leg press or a leg extension with reverse sled drags. So you get some bands and you wrap around your waist and you wrap around the sled apparatus. You get into the squat position. You're not coming up at all, and you're just walking backwards. That will burn the shit out of your quads. So, but that's different than I think what this other guy was talking about. Where you're just forward pushing it. But Nate brings up a really good point. If anyone has, they're just reverse sled drags where you got a band around your waist, and it has to be a band. You can't use a rope or a harness. The band for some reason, and you just get it back to where it's really taut, and then you just take slow steps backwards, and that will burn the shit out of your quads.
Real quick, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but let me ask you this. Do you think that there's anybody, I know I have thought myself, I'm relatively innovative when it comes to training. Did John Meadows not just basically, literally, metaphorically slap us all in the face and make you go, I am nowhere near as innovative with exercise? Because I'd thought of fucking everything. And I'd see somebody do like, God damn, I would have never thought about putting a resistance band on a dumbbell to do pullovers. What the fuck? That's a great idea.
I think he was just not afraid to do that stuff and show people to do it. Because I think we've all had ideas on different things.
But it was never dumb shit. You didn't see anything. He didn't do anything stupid. It was like legit,
we didn't see them all. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. He wouldn't post it. But he had the foresight to know that it was stupid, so he didn't want to post it.
That would have been a great.
Makes him smart anyway.
That would have been a great video with him. Like, John, what are the 4 dumb exercises that you never showed us? You know,
that are still on your phone that you can't bring yourself to post.
That would have been great.
What about this? So, I have 2 things. Number one, I got to tell you, I'm working with a guy who was a former professional cyclist. Shout out to Eric in Canada. This guy, so this is what he did for, I think from the time he was 18 to 26, I think 24 maybe. Did it for like at least 6 years. Not a huge upper body. You know, he's got some muscle, but he's definitely like average size up top. Legs are like freaking Olympia wheels, like flat out crazy. Like I'm sure he wouldn't mind if I privately showed you guys his picture. I can't post it publicly though. Like, I look at his legs and it blows my mind because he has an average build. He's like average frame. Nothing about him says like crazy. Now I'm excited to see what we can do with his upper body because his legs have proven.
Here's what you do.
They're crazy. They're like 28 inches, 30 inches.
I'm going to pull a John Meadows right here. All you do, seriously, is take him, turn him upside down on his bike, and he pedals with his fucking arms, and his upper body will be huge.
Yeah.
No, but you're right about that. The Olympic cyclists have massive quads. And I'm always blown away. Why do they have one quad that's bigger than the other? Like massively bigger.
Yeah.
You notice that?
No.
Look, I can show you some pictures. There's like some top guy, I can't remember his name, that from like 4 or 5 years ago, we were all throwing his pictures around. And like his left one is like twice the size of his right. And his right one is better than most national level bodybuilders. But his left, you're like, that's like Big Rami's leg up there. I don't know if it has to do, if he does like that shorter circuit stuff and maybe you're pushing more with one leg or something.
I wonder.
I don't really know enough about it. But I remember a couple of years ago, there was a big movement with guys doing spin bike before they started their leg workouts to really like blast the quads before they moved on to like a squat. Jean-Pierre Fuchs. What about him?
He did that.
What about him?
He did that. He had like he had a circuit where he would like get on the bike for 5 minutes, hit it as hard as he could, and then squat right after that.
Okay, gotcha.
Really?
Gotcha.
We talked about that, remember, Scott?
Did we?
Early on when I was having the knee problems and we were talking about how the resistance on a recumbent bike could really mimic that type of, and that there might be a use for that for hypertrophy because the repetition range is just so massive. And obviously it would be primarily, I mean, I guess you could do it either way. You could do explosive short term, but I mean, you could really dig in. I think you could dig into type 2 fibers maybe a little bit better doing that because it's just constant there's no break. You're just constantly pushing.
And there's no real eccentric either though. It's mostly just concentric to push.
It's kind of an odd.
So you're not creating the muscle damage. You're not creating the same muscle damage. So it shows that there's other mechanisms of muscular growth, hypertrophy, than just the traditional. All the growth is caused from the eccentric phase of the tearing of the muscle fibers. So, I mean, this is something that we could probably all learn a lot more about. But I mean, I'm not getting on a bike and doing that stuff before.
I know that I was thinking the same thing, but then it brings the other question with cycling, much like the argument with, deadlifters in their back. Do people who cycle get big legs because of the cycling, or are they so good when they start cycling because they have the genetic predisposition that they're good right out of the gate, and then they just basically like play on that and they build on that already, that their muscles are made up genetically to be this is what I always said about Johnny O. Jackson. Does he deadlift? Did he have a shitty back and then deadlift and building? I know that's a very good point, and that's what I'm thinking, because I think people might get the wrong idea and think, oh well, shit, I got really weak legs, so I'm going to get on a cycle, I'm going to get huge legs. It probably is not going to work that way. Correlation and causation, it's not always the same shit.
I'll tell you what, I grew my legs pretty well when I was a kid. I saved up my money for my summer job. I bought a mountain bike and I rode that thing everywhere. I didn't have my driver's license yet. And I remember my shorts like stretching out around my legs by the end of the summer. And I remember my buddy pointed it out. He was like, dude, your legs look crazy. Like, I didn't work out at the time. And I looked down, there's like veins going through my calves and everything. So I don't know which it was.
That's coming back to your calves though. Genetically, you have that retarded calf thing. So that's there. That's some, because I caught when I was younger. I would get up every single time because my arm wasn't very good. So I couldn't throw from my knees. But my fucking legs ain't big. They've never been big. No one's ever going to look at my legs and go, those legs are fucking big. So I know that didn't fucking work.
All right. What else we got here? Okay. Thoughts on training routines. Does training push-pull legs versus one muscle group a day change the amount of muscle you can grow? Most big bodybuilders do the one muscle group a week. I always train hard, but I did push-pull legs for a big majority of my lifting experience.
I don't know if it's true that most big bodybuilders do one body part a day. I mean, I think that was in the time period of like, say, the 90s and early 2000s, I think. But then when people like Dante and some of the other, maybe some Mike Menser influences came out.
Dorian.
I know Dorian. I don't know why I forgot Dorian. But like, I know a lot of top bodybuilders, in the professional status now, that do more of a push-pull legs or a push-pull legs arms, or they put body parts together. So I don't know if it's true that all the best bodybuilders today just do. But then again, like all the very, very best bodybuilders today get big off any training program you give them.
Bingo.
You know what I mean?
Bingo.
Like, so it goes back to genetics are the number one thing in our sport. Like the earlier you realize that, I think the better you're going to feel about yourself as a bodybuilder, that genetics are the number one driver. If you're doing all the right things, you're training, JP, as Nate mentioned, if you're training hard, you're eating your 6 meals a day, you're, bodybuilding foods, you're doing what it takes to be a bodybuilder. You got to understand that genetics are the number one thing that are going to take you, or that's going to limit or take you as far as you're going to go. So to get back, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I got something. I think of Scott Stevenson, because he was the one. It was through podcasting with him and Jordan for the first 2 years of Muscle Minds or so, first year and a half, that I was really challenged, because I was on a podcast with two guys that loved super high frequency, or higher frequency. And at the time I couldn't get with it. And they planted seeds though, and eventually it made sense, but it took a while to set in and for me to actually adopt that. But I truly do believe in my heart that there is something to be said for guys who do have weaker genetics to do a higher frequency training system, that every time we train, we upregulate all those growth factors that happen in the muscle and protein synthesis and all of that. And that what I've kind of concluded myself is, and this is through talking to Scott, seeing my own experience, seeing experience with a lot of people, is that maybe a guy like, and it is a lot of Scott Stevenson, is that maybe a guy like Brandon Curry, because we interviewed Brandon and we really picked apart like how he grows. Maybe a guy like Brandon Curry can train once a week and he gets all those growth factors and they just continue to cascade until that week later when he trains that body part again. But a guy like me, I might only get that for a day or two. So the more frequently I can hit a muscle group, the better off I'm going to be. The caveat to that is being able to recover. So it's all about trying to figure out the amount that you can tolerate. So I would say that I think that for somebody who isn't genetically blessed, my thought would be that you could grow more muscle on a push-pull legs if you can set it up so that you can get everything you can out of it and recover. That when we talk about what do you need to do to recover, then that's when we start talking about getting rid of junk volume, and that's a whole other conversation. Mm-hmm. But I personally think that yes, in my opinion, a system that allows you to train more frequently is going to allow you to get those growth factors that happening, that increased protein synthesis. Say if you train close to twice a week, let's say you're close to twice a week, then we can say that the guy once a week, he gets that stimulus 52 times versus you get it 100 times.
That was the old cycle for pennies argument.
Yeah, I think there's so much truth to that. I wish that's something that would have clicked with me sooner. I really do, because I've seen in my 40s, I've been able to make tremendous progress. Granted, COVID's kind of screwed me up still. At this point, I'm still recovering, but I had seen finally the light. so I shall preach. Yes, by training more frequently.
Because I'm going to go the opposite way and say that every single time I try it, it does not work. And the second I go back to training less frequently, it works. And this comes to my point. Well, there's a couple reasons, but the main point here is the delicate balance between volume, frequency, and intensity.
Yes.
And for some reason, as I put up each finger, I had to look at them to make sure they came up, or something. I don't know what the fuck I was doing. Did number 2 come out? Anyway, it's such a delicate balance, and this is why there are a lot of components to answering a question like this, because I know myself, as soon as I go to the frequency thing, or I go to more frequent training, I don't want to pull back on intensity, and I'll pull back on volume, but I still don't like to. But the intensity thing it's off the table. I'm either going to train the way that I fucking train and adjust volume and frequency, or I'm just staying home and I'm going to drink fucking Mountain Dew and eat Cheetos. That's just, after doing it for so long, there are things that I won't give up, and I won't give up training the way that I train. So, and to me, it's more black and white. So that from there, where I know where my intensity level is, and I'm not saying it's off the charts and I train harder than Dusty and fuck you guys, you're pussies. What I'm saying is I have that level where that's where I want to train. So I'm not going to change that. So then from there, and I'm explaining this so that people can get an understanding of how I process it. Maybe they can process it the same way. So then I have 2 things left. If I'm not willing to move on the intensity component,
and you shouldn't. You need that intensity in order to do something you hadn't done before, in order to grow.
And that makes one of those 3 variables constant. So I can eliminate that being the issue, and then I can just focus on now the last 2 variables, and that is frequency and volume. Volume's easier to control, I think, than frequency, just because, and this is my particular situation, when I train frequently, there's a lot more time involved because it takes me just as long to warm up for chest if I'm going to train twice a week with 9 sets versus 4 sets. There's still that time. And one thing I have noticed with me, and I don't know if it's because I'm older or it's just me or what, but the more frequent I train, the more my joints fucking hurt. They hurt, and they feel, and this isn't what they are, but they feel brittle. They feel achy. And then the second I change back to less frequent, within 2 weeks, my poundages are going up. The pumps are insane. My joints feel great. And I'm like, why do I keep fucking trying? And you know why? Honestly, because I keep coming back to going, well, if I could train chest more, 72 times instead of, and I'm not knocking the system. I'm not. What I'm saying is there's just a lot of variables. So if you're older and you're training more intensely, and you can, the more years you train, the more intensely you can train. You don't think so until you get there, and then you go, oh shit. And now I know in 5 years I might be able to train even more intensely, which probably at my age is not true. But as you go through your late 20s and into your 30s stuff, you can generate more intensity because you have more muscle tissue. There's the neural pathways and shit like that. You just have a better connection. You know how to train versus moving a weight from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So I think that the frequency is better for people who not necessarily even genetically gifted, even though that plays a part, but the people who are new, who need to build those neural pathways and feel what a muscle feels like when they're training.
Wait,
and
you mean higher frequency or lower frequency?
Higher frequency, because they don't
see that.
have the ability to generate the intensity that someone does who's been training for 10 or 15 years. Now, that's not to say that once you train for 10 or 15 years that you can't train more frequently, but then it becomes the genetic component, where when people first start out, it might not be as much of a genetic component, because if you trained only once a week, you don't have those neural pathways. You're not digging into that muscle like you would in 10 years after 10 years of training, in my opinion, most people.
I got to tell you, Eric just texted me. So like I said, he's a ectomorph looking guy. All right. His quads are 27.5 inches.
Oh, Jesus. That's
He's
impressive.
a fucking monster.
How much does he weigh?
I can't remember offhand. But yeah.
But is he like 250 or is he like 200?
No. He's just getting into bodybuilding.
Okay.
Like he's just.
And he was a
into
cyclist
bodybuilding.
before, so he's probably even lighter than 200.
More like
27.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Can I add one more caveat to the discussion?
Yeah.
About the frequency and volume, etc. I'm thinking also, like, you shouldn't be afraid to adjust it based off the state you're in. And I'll just give you an example of myself. Okay. I was training 5 to 6 days a week for my prep, geared up, motivated, blah, 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 blah. After the shows, after the season, there's a little bit of post-show depression. Meadows passed away, so there was that going on. I had a lot of travel going on, and I got COVID. Okay. So my idea of having a really great post-show rebound phase and maximizing every little detail, that flew out the window within a few days or weeks.
I bet.
So right. So I changed my course of action. I pulled all the compounds, and I pulled my training back to just 3 days a week on a push, pull, leg split, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's it. And I'm doing great on it. I'm hitting PRs. I'm getting stronger, and I'm not even trying to train that hard right now. Like, it's more of like a recovery thing, but we'll do 1 or 2 good sets every session, and we'll really bang it out. And I've hit a few PRs and a few different exercises without even trying. But my point is that the different states you are in throughout the year as a bodybuilder, when you're all geared up, your muscle protein synthesis ability is going to be increased. So you might be able to handle a little bit more of a volume or a frequency. Whereas when you're pulling it back to cruise dosing, the muscle building factory is not operating at full capacity. Right. So in that sense, that's kind of how I base a lot of things I do with myself and clients. Just to give you an example, like if someone's a 5-day-a-week trainer and then we pull them back to cruising, usually like 2 weeks into it, I'll ask them how they're doing, how's the training going, and they might report like, I'm feeling a little bit run down. Okay, great time to pull it back to 4 days a week, and let's maximize those 4 days a week and continue maximizing all the other variables: nutrition, sleep, rest, etc. So I do think you don't have to be so dogmatic. There's that word again, and locked in
it's a good one.
to one particular mode of training for yourself, or one particular mode of frequency, volume, etc. I do think you can tailor it to where you're at through the year, whether it's based off stress, compounds you're running. Because if you have a lot of travel coming up for work, and we all know at this age, when you're traveling, you don't feel right for 2 or 3 days. Digestion isn't right. You're going to a new gym usually where you don't know the machines. You don't know all the little idiosyncrasies of like, oh, this machine feels great where I put my feet right here. So you're not really able to go 100%. I do think, you can tailor this kind of, wave of frequency and volume up and down based off the state you're in during the year.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, I think one of the other points that Scott always makes is in something we talk about too, is that what would work best for you. It kind of depends. What are you doing now? For a guy who's always trained 1 time a week, then maybe he will blow up going to higher frequency. But maybe a guy who's just slamming that frequency, then maybe he'd be better off to pull back.
Yeah. Right. One thing I will say is, for someone that's a 1 body part a week or whatever type of person, I wouldn't jump to train on that body part 2 times a week. Like maybe you get on a split to where you're getting a body part for a second time. Like if you're Monday, push pull, then you hit the push again on a Friday. So don't jump to, if you're going to try this to increase your frequency and your don't try to jump and do, I'm going to train everything like Ronnie did on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'm hitting those same muscle groups as hard as he did. He's a genetic freak. He's a special person that can get away with that kind of stuff. Most of us, not so much.
All right. Let's see what else do we have here. A lot of good questions today.
I love the training questions. I could do an entire podcast on training. I love it.
Well, Skip, you may be in luck here. We got another training question.
Cat questions too.
We got another training question just for you.
All right.
Okay, so now let's take it to like ultra high frequency. Training twice a day. Jason Sexton, he says training twice a day. For instance, back width and thickness AM and chest, shoulders, and tris PM. Skip, no comments on back width and thickness.
No problem. But I will comment and say that I am not a fan of split two workouts in a day. I think if you're going to do it, you better be genetically
Arnold
predisposed. Yeah, you better have retarded genetics, because otherwise it ends up, in my opinion, being a giant waste of time. And I think, and we'll use back and chest as an example. If he trains back in the morning, chest, in my opinion, is not going to be trained very effectively, because you're using those muscles for heavy chest pressing and they're already fatigued. And honestly, you might fucking cramp from it.
Yeah.
I'm not even thinking
even
about
the arch in your back
could happen. I'm thinking about the neurologically. Like, how are you going to get it up? No pun intended. For two body parts after you've already shot your wad. No other pun intended.
Absolutely.
In a morning workout, there's just no way. Like, if you did a heavy, like, leg session with squats, hack squats, like whatever, there's no way you're going to come in and do your max bench later on that day. Or if you're able to do it once, you're not going to be able to maintain or sustain that type of approach for long term. Mm-hmm. So maybe if you're going in, you're doing like chest and shoulders in the morning, and you go in at night and you're doing like bis and tris, maybe.
Sure.
But then what are you going to do the next day?
Mm-hmm.
If someone's going to do that, I'm like, okay, go do your calves and abs at night.
There you go.
Or I just don't see it being a even close to short-term successful approach, unless you are one of the top 0.5% genetically gifted people out there.
Yeah.
And let me add this too. If the person asks, and this is me assuming, so I don't want to sound like a dick when I say this, but if the person asking the question is now listening to us and going, well, I can train like a motherfucker twice a day. You can't. You can't in the sense that you think you are. But if you take those two workouts, and let's just say not even on 2 different days, you train back on Monday and you come back and train chest on Tuesday, you give me both of those workouts with that focus and that type of like energy and mindset and then I'll pat you on the back and I'll agree with you. But honestly, it's almost impossible. And I would say really to this point, if you said you can't do it, Andrew, and I said I can't do it, Scott, can you do it?
No, God, no. Hell no.
It's probably not likely. And we have, I don't even know how many training years. Now, if this guy comes back and he's a pro, or he's getting ready to turn pro and he's got 40 pounds and he's been training for 15 years, then I'll stand corrected and I'll admit it. But I don't.
There's only one pro I can think of.
I would find it hard to believe. Kevin
There's only
Veroni.
one pro I can think of that did a. Well, okay, there's 2 pros actually. I don't know Kevin's training.
Exactly.
No, not even Ronnie. No, Mark Dugdale.
He did 2 times?
Mark Dugdale Meadows, when he was working with Meadows helped him out with a program because he was doing DC type training all the way up to that, and just kept on getting hurt, and he reached out to Meadows, and Meadows had him doing more of a traditional mountain dog training program, but Mark wanted to train twice a day, and I can't remember exactly why, and there's a write-up on this on T Nation somewhere if someone wants to look for it, and I think on our mountain dog website, but he would do something, but I think John tailored his volume very appropriately so that he was able to sustain it. Now, the other thing is that Mark ran a business. He does like a Whole Foods type store. That's not the name of it, but it's a very similar, like organic. He was on his feet all day as like the CEO and president of the company. He didn't do any cardio, I don't think, for that prep. So, a lot of people are doing like a cardio session at one point and a training session at night, maybe more cardio after that if they need to. I don't think he had to do a lick of cardio for that prep. But I would say if you asked him, I think he would say that the one-time training a day was more beneficial in terms of building muscle to get to where he was.
I can tell you, I know Ronnie did do a split where he trained multiple times a day, and Dusty did that last year. And the way it would work would be like back in the morning and then biceps in the afternoon or the evening kind of thing. Mm-hmm.
To me, that's just
something like that, though. That's different.
Yeah. And what Dusty said about it was he was like, if you want to feel like you're full-time bodybuilding, he was like, you get up, you have enough time to like eat your food, eat a second meal, and you're mentally preparing to go to the gym if you're training after meal too, right? So then you go to the gym, you train. He's like, then you come home and you eat, you take a nap, you wake up, and then it's like, now you got to start mentally preparing for that second. He was like, you're plugged in full time to that. He didn't. And I mean, he's not doing
have
it
that
now.
much time to A, devote to training, and B, devote to rest and recovery though.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like he was eating, sleeping, training. That was it.
Yeah.
Now, did he say it was effective for him?
No, he's not doing it now.
There you go.
Yeah, I think it was like just the time commitment in itself was just a lot,
Yeah.
Well, mentally, when you're on Thursday and you've already done 6 workouts Monday through Wednesday, how do you get it up on Thursday morning or Thursday evening for the 8th workout of the week? I'm sorry. I just don't think you start to hate the gym. I think at that point it becomes something you have to do, not something that you want and get to do. So I think that's a big component too, is wanting to go to the gym versus, I have to go to the gym. So,
All right. We have one on arm training. Arm training emphasizing progressive overload or chase the pump. I've seen people I respect on both sides of the argument. Would love to hear y'all's take. And I'll be right back. I need to grab some Benadryl.
I say you got to do them both. I think you got to do them both and see what you respond to better because, and I'll use myself as an example, my arms have always been strong. Let me rephrase that. Everything that on me is so weak that my arms look strong in comparison. So what I did was I cut back on the arm training, and then my arms grew even more. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? So to me, I've always argued that it's been one of my main arguments for progressive overload is it's not the only way to build muscle because I am not as strong now or in the last, say, 5 years as I was 20 years ago, yet my arms are bigger. The other thing that I think is important that people need to know is with heavy pushing and heavy pulling comes arm development for most people. If you're, bench pressing 315 or you're doing, bent over rows of 275, 315, chins, things, you're going to get a lot of indirect growth. So then you have to figure out how much is too much when it comes to arm work in putting your arm, because people will say, well, my arms are weak, so I train them more frequently. Well, you're already hitting them on heavy chest and heavy back too. So then you have to consider sometimes when your arms aren't growing that it's more of a recovery issue and you need to train the arms less to allow for more growth. There's a lot of shit going on when your arms aren't responding than there is when your chest isn't responding or your back isn't responding, I think, because I consider them almost secondary muscle groups, to be honest with you. I know that's kind of a stretch but they're just not, they're used so much that if you really break down the volume of your workout in a week, by the time you factor in all your upper body work and shit like that, you're actually hitting your arms more than you're hitting your chest and your back usually, or it's very close to the same and it's more frequent.
I grabbed a bush light.
I don't really have much to add to that.
I was going to try to turn it that way so you couldn't see the label. I didn't hear what you said.
Me personally, I just stick to pump stuff for arms for the most part.
Yeah.
I did the rest pause thing, back, especially when I was working with Dante, and I was curling, like 75 or 80 pound dumbbells. The form was probably horrible. If I were to look at it now, I'd say, oh man, that's not effective at all. You can do the same thing with a 40 or a 35 and really get a better bicep workout. The other thing I think you will find, and to Skip's point about already doing so much upper body work and still taxing your arms, is I think you add more arm volume in, or you even do more of a progressive overload type thing after doing your upper body. I think it lends itself to your tendonitis and all those different itises that you can get, epicondylitis,
Totally.
Just that inflammation. Because I find when I try to train an upper body part multiple times throughout the week, quite often that's when, even if I'm not training arms twice a week, I'm doing arms once a week, but I'm training the upper body a couple times a week. That's when I start to get the tendonitis type stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Do you guys have any experience with injectable glutathione?
Yeah, I took it today.
Did you really? Yeah?
Yeah.
How are you liking that?
All right, so it's not something you're going to notice. You know what I mean? You're taking it for a health benefit, really, for liver and everything. But what I have people do is like typically in a part of the post show phase of cleaning out and helping getting healthy, we'll do a cc or 200 to 250 milligrams of injectable glutathione every day, because that stuff burns so bad. If anyone's ever taken it,
I've heard
it's got
that.
a bite to it.
Yeah.
It's got a pretty bad bite, yeah. So I'll have them actually cut it 50-50 with injectable B12 or B complex, and just double the amount. And I have them rotate sites like deltoids, side of your quads. I typically won't put it exactly in the same places where someone would also be injecting their injectables, their oils, because water and oil, obviously. If you want to create some inflammation, then go ahead and do that. It's going to hurt. But yeah, but again, it's in terms of, are you asking like in terms of results, in terms of like liver values, or in terms of recovery?
Yeah,
or
they're just, he was asking, what did he say specifically? It was just, what are your thoughts on injectable glutathione for liver support?
Yeah, so I definitely do think it's something you could incorporate during prep. I typically don't do it during prep. I'll do it after, because you're already sticking yourself with so many different compounds every day that it's like you have the mindset that you're going to be super healthy. I'm going to take every little thing under the sun for liver health or whatnot. I stick to the pills for that kind of stuff, and then after the show, when I pull all the hard stuff out, that's when I run the glutathione and even more, liver and organ recovery stuff.
How are you dosing it?
200 to 250 milligrams a day.
Okay, yeah, I thought it was a little bit higher than what I'm seeing here. Now, it is available orally. I had never used glutathione before, and I got some strong capsules of it when I was sick, and it was the only thing. It made me nauseous. I couldn't take it while I was sick.
Was it glutathione, or was it N-acetylcysteine?
It was glutathione. But it made me, I
I've never taken oral.
Yeah, I was it's not, obviously it's not as bioavailable, but it made me really sick.
Scott Stevenson said the same thing. I don't think he's a big fan, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm looking at
oral or injectable?
Oral.
Gotcha.
I'm looking at Amino Asylum. By the way, use code THINK for 20% off. They don't have it on its own. It's
called Liver Restore. It's called Liver Restore. Yeah,
okay.
That's the one I use. That's when I use either that, or I've got friends that send me compounded pharmacy stuff too. But I do use the Amino Asylum.
It's called Liver Restore.
And again, it burns. The Amino Asylum stuff really burns. So it might even be overdosed, honestly.
I see it
compared
here.
to the compounded pharmacy stuff.
Yeah, I saw something else where it had a little bit in. It was only like 25 milligrams. But okay, yeah, I see.
25?
Yeah, another product that has multiple things in it. And it contains some glutathione, 25 milligrams. But I see this now, 200 milligrams. Yeah.
I don't think 25 milligrams is an efficacious dose to get much out of it.
No.
All the research I've seen was more in the 200 to 500s. So
I had heard about, speaking of, basically at this point, we're talking about kind of some research stuff here. I've been using their L-carnitine. And I'll tell you what. I genuinely believe that it's helping my recovery from having gotten COVID. Like, I genuinely, in my heart, believe, like, taking that, I feel better. Because I haven't been super consistent, I'll be honest with you. But when I take it that day, I'm like, oh my God, like, I feel like I'm coming around. And then if I don't take it for a day, which I didn't today, then I don't have that same benefit. But it's supposed to be really beneficial for rebuilding mitochondria. So...
Well, yeah, and that's what I was saying with COVID. That's huge. Go ahead. If that's where you're going. Yeah.
It's a transport protein, and it transports the acetyl group, which is the breakdown. Basically, it's a breakdown of fatty acids. It's the fatty acid group. It transports it across the mitochondrial membrane and gets it into the mitochondrial matrix, so then it can be used by Krebs cycle for energy, etc. So the benefits of it really are that if you're going to be able to utilize a little bit more fat as a fuel source, and when you're doing that, what are you not burning? Glycogen. So you're going to stay a little bit fuller too. Yeah. So I think you'll notice a cosmetic effect when you're in shape. I know I do.
Yeah.
But I think with COVID, isn't there questions about basically there's so much going on, I say basically like with the mitochondria that you end up running, and I don't know if this is probably speculation, but you're running low on ATP, or the conversion of glucose and basically to ATP, and that's why they're speculating, and correct me if you've heard something different, but that's why they're speculating that the energy and the fatigue is so dramatic.
That would make sense, actually,
from COVID. Yeah.
So then adding creatine to that mix would make a lot of sense too.
Huh.
So that's what I mean. There's
Three
things in there
synthesized.
that you have to wonder if maybe we're not missing something that's actually quite obvious that could be of huge benefit.
I mean, I'm telling
from the
you,
fatigue and energy.
Well, Scott's noticing
standpoint.
anecdotally.
I'm telling you,
that-
like, yeah, like, and it's not something where like, hey, I think this is working. It's like I took Clen and I could breathe better. Obviously, you know you can, right? You take Clen, you know it's working. It's on that level. So I'm happy with it. I'm going to keep running it.
I actually use it year round.
Do you?
Not as high as I do during, like, say, like a contest prep phase, but I'll still take it at least 3 days a week.
Okay.
Throughout the year.
Okay.
Absolutely. Now, Scott also pointed out, though, and I know you guys did a podcast on this, and me and Scott have shared about 15 emails about it over the last week or two, about how it downplays the conversion or the utilization of T3.
Yes.
Was that correct? That the podcast you guys did?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that might explain why, say, some people need to use more T3 when they're using L-carnitine as a supplement or injectable.
Yeah, he was saying that they actually use it at extremely high doses in cases of thyroid storm to arrest that.
Yes, that's right. Yep. So that's pretty interesting. If they're using it to counteract the effects of the thyroid,
right?
Then yeah.
But it's
and
like,
I think that there's varying.
It's like super high doses. Nothing a bodybuilder would ever do. Oh wait,
Yeah, we don't go that. We're very.
No, I think it was like
conservative.
10,000. Wasn't it like 10,000 milligrams daily? I think, or something.
Is that
like
what it
whereas
was?
A bodybuilder will take like 500 milligrams.
Yeah.
Not telling anyone to take 500 or 10,000.
Right.
Just saying these are the stuff from papers I think Scott has sent me over the last week or things we've discussed. Because when you do an email with Scott, he cites, like, anyone that's read one of Scott's articles, the work cited, the research, the references are about as long as the articles. And even when he shoots you an email, he will reference the points that he's talking about with links to the research papers, like, routinely. It's so impressive.
True Nutrition has supported our programming now for a number of years, and I'm super grateful for it because they believe in us and I believe in them. I'm sure you guys have heard of Dante Trudell. We talk about him on the shows. He had a vision of offering high-quality, third-party tested supplements at a fair price. They have a ton of different protein powders, just about every type you could think of, literally thousands of flavor combinations. Hit me up if you're interested in suggestions. They offer health supplements. I use their collagen and their fish oil. And of course, they offer performance supplements. You can get bulk EAA powder or beta-alanine. You can also get finished products like the Mountain Dog Perry MD Intra-Workout. If you shop with True Nutrition and you use our code THINK, you'll get some additional savings, you'll get high-quality supplements, and you will support our programming. You can also help to support the shows through Patreon. I appreciate everybody who's made a contribution. You guys are helping to keep me pumping these podcasts out. I have links to everything in the description. Check them out. Let me know what you think, and let's get back to the program. Are you guys familiar with a medication called Kenalog?
I am not.
Kenalog.
Is it type of like an insulin or
It's a
something?
corticosteroid. That's what it is. It looks like it's it's a corticosteroid. Okay. Question from Andrew Nolan. Ever use Kenalog for cystic acne? Have a friend not on 19 NORS and has used antibiotics from a derm but no look. Looks like this is a type of fungal dermatitis. In my opinion, hygiene has been addressed, showering, etc. I've used Kenalog 40 injections for joints while in orthopedics, but never sub-Q for dermatitis. Yeah, you know what? So I wonder if that's what they used. I went to an acne clinic years ago when I wanted to try to get Accutane, and they gave me injections like right into acne, and it was a steroid, and that worked. And I'll tell you what, betamethasone, it's a super powerful cream. Like, I want to say, I can't remember the level of it, but it's kind of like if you take cortisone is a certain level of strength, and then you take the next one up, and that's like, I think it was like 20 times more powerful, and then betamethasone is like 100 times more powerful than that. And I've used betamethasone on acne spots, and it, huge reduction of inflammation. So it'll actually make.
How about side effects?
Well,
For either
okay.
of the compounds?
So when you use it topically, The issue is that with long-term repeated use, a topical steroid can make your skin thinner in that area.
Yeah.
So if you were to have really bad acne and you were to rely on this for an extended period of time, it could be a problem. But I've never talked about this on a podcast, but I thought I'd mention it now, that just because it kind of ties in, that I think using a topical, powerful, corticosteroid is a great way to get acne under control. Because I mean, you get, you know what it's like? It's like once that inflammation is there, it can take like a freaking week for that pimple to go away, but you can zap that inflammation, put the betamethasone on it the night before, that night, in the morning, the next morning, the inflammation is dramatically reduced and it'll heal faster. It's not a fix. It's not a way to like long-term combat acne, but it could be of benefit. It is a benefit. I've seen it happen. This stuff, Kenologue, I'm not familiar with this drug in particular.
I just did a quick check, and if I'm not mistaken, it looks more like and correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially like hydrocortisone, like it's a shot that would be similar. So, but I don't know if it's a brand name, or I don't have enough time to check on it. But that's kind of when you say corticosteroid,
it's stronger than like your hydrocortisone. Like something because I looked it up quickly as well, because I'd never heard of the compound either. But I'm actually glad you brought this up, Scott, because I had someone email me today about starting to see some acne, and that'd be a good thing to pass on. So thank you.
Let's see, versus cortisone.
And I'm over here going, never had to deal with it. I don't know if I've just been lucky. I've certainly taken plenty of shit. Yeah, I just have never. And in my experience, I did find that the few times that I did, it would be when blood levels were going up or blood levels were coming down. And that's what I found with a lot of clients. Yes. Once you're stable, it's not as likely. But there are those people who are prone to it. And it's so bad that it's just like they erupt. But then once those levels are stable, and I'm just being completely honest with you, with those people, I tell them, you don't want to ride the roller coaster of going on and off. You want to try to ride your cycles and get the most out so that you don't have to deal with as much of the fluctuations of blood levels, because it could end up scarring your skin.
Yeah. The only time I've had symptoms was coming off.
The
only time I've had them was like in a 2-3 week period coming off, and then once you're back down to baseline levels, completely normal. It's weird.
It's kind of funny too, because my back, I'll be like, God, I feel like I cut myself shame. And what I'll end up with like one fucking, and I just hit it right or something with my belt, and all of a sudden I'm bleeding like someone stabbed me. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, I have one, like either zit or whatever the hell you want to call it. I hate that word. It's so disgusting, the word. But I mean, that's about the extent of it. So I've been lucky.
Can I talk about words for a second?
Talk about words, Andrew.
When a grown man sends you like an update and they've got certain words in there, like, all right,
like belly?
I'm sending my check in to you guys, okay, and I say my tummy only hurt twice this week.
I was just gonna go there.
Does that make you cringe and like nails on a chalkboard?
Here's the catch, though. Here's the catch. They have to have kids, because I've heard myself say potty when my kids were younger, and I'm thinking, I'm a grown ass man. I just said the word potty. What the fuck? I bet kids are involved with that, because it doesn't even relate to me anymore because my kids are grown. But I'll bet you that's the deal. I'll bet he has kids.
I don't think there's kids involved. I don't think there's children involved.
No shit, then that's just wrong.
I was telling someone else this story. I was telling my buddy Justin Randall this story when we were somewhere. I'm like, do you ever get certain words and updates that just make you go like, ugh? And I told him that story, and he looked at me like sideways. He's like, are you fucking serious? Like a grown man sent that to you? Not to pick on my client if he's listening, but certain words just, when you're a certain age, they make me squeezy, I guess.
Lab work. How often or what specific points on and off cycle should someone get labs done to maximize the value of data without wasting money on getting labs too frequently? That's a very good question.
To me, I'm someone that likes to see what the worst of it is. So like, I'm the guy that does blood work a week out from a show, because I want to know where my starting point for how bad things are is. So I typically do mine 10 days or whatever out, just to see when all the hard stuff's in there. Beyond that, like after you do like a hard, let's say you did like a 25-week prep because you did multiple shows, you get it done either right then or right after the show. And then I probably would want to see it again like 8 to 10 weeks later, just to know we're on the right path. Because the other thing, like we kid ourselves a lot of times, like, oh, it's been 8 weeks and everything's clean now, but it's probably only been clean for a few days or a few weeks. So you got to, right. I mean, and I think, like no one in this game at this point, has the wool over their eyes in the sense of like, oh, I'm completely healthy. Like, I think we all know we're chipping minutes off of the old clock, and it's our job, I think, as coaches to educate people of, what compounds do that and to mitigate as much as we can the issues that you're going to have with those compounds and to be a guiding force of, we're not going to run trend for 15 weeks in the off season. We're not, like that kind of stuff. So, just to answer his question, I think, I like to see it at the worst of it. And then I like to see it again at some point later on. And then again, when you have a relationship with clients and long-term clients, you get to know, and you probably save their blood work. You can look back, but you get to know like who's affected by what things.
Yep.
So
exactly.
Like, I got a guy that I just took on maybe 5 weeks ago, and he sent his blood work in, and he's been responding crazy post-show. And he's like, oh, I can push it. I'm good. And I'm like, well, let's see your blood work. His blood work came back. When I say that nothing was off, like nothing, liver enzymes, nice. HDL, like HCRP, like nothing was off. I'm like, dude, I think your gear was fake. And he goes, dude, my last coach used to say the same thing. Damn. And I'm looking at him, and he doesn't look like someone that's on fake shit, obviously. So I'm like, dude, you have, because this is another thing I talk about in terms of genetics. Some people just have really good genetics when it comes to how they process and detoxify when it comes to compounds. Absolutely. And this guy is literally grade A, top of the line food chain when it comes to that kind of stuff.
That's also where age plays a role too. You know what I mean?
Like, age plays a role, so many factors. But I've had other people where you're running a pretty innocuous cycle, like, 400 tests and like maybe, an equal amount of an anabolic and no orals or anything. And you get the blood work back and you're like, oh dude, we got to stop this now. Like let's pull it back. And some people just don't have good genetics when it comes to processing compounds that way.
I agree. I've even seen it on TRT where I look at the numbers and go, this can't be, this just doesn't look, this much damage can't be happening right now. I'm going to agree with pretty much everything you said as far as the time frame and everything else. The only thing that I'll say that I do differently is I'd never get it done a week before. I'd get it 3 to 4, and I wouldn't look at the results until after the show. I'm just being honest. And the reason is if there was something, and there never really was anything that made me go, holy shit, but I didn't want anything and I didn't want to stress about it, because at that point, if everything was going well, you know that your decision is going to be, I can push it another 3 weeks. That's just how
I wouldn't have changed anything. I wouldn't have changed anything.
I just didn't want it weighing on my brain. And it's funny, Scott, because you mentioned the age. And it's important not only, and some people will do this, they'll get their blood work and everything goes well for like 3 or 4 years. Then they start not doing it because it's going to be good. I don't want to waste the time. I don't want to waste the money. Don't kid yourself, because until 2013, my blood work was fucking incredible. And then all of a sudden I had blood work done and my doctor called me and said, there's been a mix up at the lab. They screwed up, whatever. I'm going to have them redo. He's like, no, wait, give me another 3 days. And he called me back in 3 days. He's like, you're going to have to come in. We gotta talk. I'm like, well, I don't want to fucking come in. Like, obviously something's bad. Fucking tell me what's going on. Yeah. So we had a conversation about it, and that's when I had to change and drop to TRT at that point for 5 years or so. And
I remember that.
It was from nowhere, literally out of the fucking blue. Now, there may have been some reason that caused it, but I could never put my finger on and figure out what it was. So that's a prime example. What's that?
Were you someone that was taking like all of the health supplements that you might be taking now at that time?
At that time, I was very vigilant about the stuff that I actually have fallen away from, and I've got it on my list of things to do to go back to it. But I had fallen away from it. There was one day I just took everything and threw it in the trash because I was looking at how much money I was spending. I remember you saying that. I did. And I just said, you know what? I am not convinced. I'm going to do damn near nothing for a year, and I'm going to watch my blood work. And it didn't fucking change. But I was also on TRT at that time for another couple of years. And then I went back on, and there's never been anything that has been, like, oh shit, I better do this or I better. But now I think just with age and turning the 50 marker, I'm like, there's 5 or 6 things that I want to make sure that I get back in there. And it's funny because I'm looking at my phone right now and I've got it on a list of stuff, but that list's been there for a month and a half. I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I have no idea why. Probably just my list of, how you have a list of 30 things and it just continues to get pushed down. And finally you realize one day that shit's been sitting there for a while. I got to get that done.
That was.
So I'm not saying not to say anything. I don't want anybody to think that. It's not what I'm just saying with my situation. I got to the point where I just felt like I was taking so much shit that I'm like, come on, can it really be, come on.
That was Elijah, and Elijah is actually watching live too. So
cool.
What's up, Elijah?
Says, thanks, fellas. Love the show. Appreciate the answers. That's all we've got. You can go to bodyberry.com. You can reach out to Andrew over there. You can go to teamskip.com. You can reach out to Skip there. Skip, do you sell those hats? Your Team Skip hat? Because we've had people that are like, oh man, I want that.
The beanies or something? Oh, no. You're talking about the baseball. Yeah. No, that was a client brought that to me from Australia.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Him and his wife came over here, to visit. They've been over here twice. And last time he brought it was funny because we had moved and I could not find that fucking hat. I accused him of taking it home with him because I could not find it for almost a year. And then I found it. So now I keep that. But yeah, he had that. It was a fitted hat and everything. It was perfect size. I love that thing. But I've had people ask me about it. I have beanies, but I don't.
You got beanies?
Most people aren't beanie people.
No, dude, I'm telling you right now, if you made up 100 hats, you'd probably sell out of them within a year.
No shit.
Oh yeah, like I sell a lot of stuff, and actually, anyone that's buying stuff right now, I'm donating all the profits to the John Meadows Fund.
Okay, nice. Cool.
Help contribute that.
Very cool.
Nice. And of course, you can go to our sponsor, TrueNutrition.com. You can use our code THINK for some awesome savings on awesome supplements. I mentioned Amino Asylum. We've got a code over there too, which that's taken off. I know a lot of our listeners have been shopping with them and using our code, which I appreciate because it helps to support our programming. You can go to Patreon. You can support us over there. I appreciate all you guys over on Patreon. You're helping to make this thing happen. I'm actually thinking about trying to use the Patreon money to hire a video editor. That way I can actually do more content. Believe it or not, I have plans. I could do twice as much content if I didn't have to spend as much time editing as I do. So that could be in the works here coming up. I appreciate you guys. You're helping to make this thing happen. And guess what? I appreciate you, Skip. And I appreciate you, Andrew. You guys are awesome.
We appreciate you too,
We
Scott.
Appreciate you. Exactly. We appreciate you too, Scott. We appreciate that you just said there's more money in the account too, because it's almost time for our contracts to be negotiated. So
yes,
true.
We'll talk about that off the air though.
All right.
My rookie year is almost over. The numbers are going to go up. I'm a free agent. I got a lot of offers.